Joining me now to talk about the memorial service is Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital and political analyst. Rob, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
The memorial service drew tens of thousands of attendees, including President Trump. What's your thoughts on the event?
Well, it was just staggering how many people turned out. The lineup of speakers, I don't imagine you and I will have a funeral with a speaker lineup like that. It was just extraordinary. And it's reflective of the 100 million who watched online, which is also extraordinary. These people turned out for Charlie because Charlie was an inspiration. And truly, all of these turning point rallies through the years, all of these change my mind events he did, they embodied the hope of a generation that we could discuss, that we could talk about our differences, that we could find common ground. And the fact that he was struck down in his youth, he's 31 years old, struck down by an assassin's bullet, tells you the evil that exists in our country, and it needs to be rooted out, root and branch. It is just never, ever, ever acceptable to meet speech with violence. It just never is, and we have to stand on that.
One of the most emotional moments, which I watched multiple times, was during the service, which was when Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, forgave the assassin, Tyler Robinson. What was your reaction to this?
Sometimes I think people forget the power of a moved wife. And I think we're going to see that power over the next several years as Erica leads this great movement that her husband birthed. Erica did an amazing job there, but she also exemplified the difference we're seeing in our country, the difference between people who burn cities and who burn candles. She stood up there with a message of forgiveness of a young man who is absolutely unrepentant and absolutely thrilled with what he did to her husband and her family. And that's the message we want for America. We want to root out that violent impulse, and we want to bring peace and understanding and discussion. And she stands for that, and she stood for it brilliantly yesterday.
Erica, with such strong conviction to faith and family, how do you think she will go forward in leading Turning Point USA?
Well, she's quite an impressive businesswoman in her own right, and she's been there with her husband as he's built this the last several years. She is inspirational. The team loves her. They respond to her well. She knows how to be a manager, which is an essential part of this, but she's also a very charismatic leader. So I think the organization is in fantastic hands. I think they're just going to bound forward from here.
At a time of such great political divide, especially in the U.S., what message do you think this memorial service will send to the nation?
Well, again, the difference is daylight and dark. You know, we saw 140 cities burn after the George Floyd killing. We saw countless innocent people attacked and harmed, more than a few killed. We saw all of this outpouring of rage, and they talked about having days of rage. You haven't seen any of that here. You have seen forgiveness. You have seen repentance. You have seen a proclamation of the gospel. You have seen people have prayer vigils. Not one city, not one riot, not one violent act has followed Charlie's death. That's a message that is just incomparable, and the difference is so stark, it is impossible to understand how anybody could miss it. I know there are people on Blue Sky in particular who are very deliberately missing it, but in the process of what we saw yesterday, those voices are shamed, and hopefully they will change their minds and come back to the kind of civil discourse that this country has been built upon, and especially that Charlie Kirk stood for.
Thank you. Thank you, Rod, for coming on.
Thank you.